Nancy Guthrie confessed it all in the note she left behind to Savannah Guthrie. In the quiet hours before dawn on a chilly February morning in 2026, Nancy Guthrie sat at her modest wooden desk in her Catalina Foothills home, the one she had cherished for decades. The house, a burnt adobe sanctuary nestled near Campbell Avenue and Skyline Drive in Tucson, Arizona, had been her refuge through joys and sorrows alike. At 84, her hands trembled slightly as she picked up a pen, the ink flowing onto the paper in a steady, deliberate script. This was no ordinary letter. It was a confession, a pouring out of the heart she had guarded so fiercely throughout her life. Addressed to her youngest daughter, Savannah Guthrie, the bright, ambitious anchor of NBC's Today Show, NY's words were raw, unfiltered, and laced with the wisdom of a life fully lived. "My dearest Savannah," she began, "I've carried so much in silence, smiling through the storms, being strong for everyone else. But now, as the shadows lengthen, I must confess it all. I was never as unbreakable as I seemed." Nancy Guthrie's note was discovered days later after her sudden disappearance gripped the nation. What started as a missing persons report on February 1st, 2026 escalated into a harrowing tale of possible abduction, with her home found in disarray and her pacemaker app mysteriously disconnected. The search, led by the Pima County Sheriff's Department and the FBI, drew national attention, amplified by Savannah's tearful pleas on social media. "Bring her home," Savannah implored in an Instagram video flanked by her siblings Annie and Cameron. The family offered rewards. The community held vigils at St. Philip's in the Hills Episcopal Church, and strangers across the country prayed for the safe return of this woman of deep conviction, a good and faithful servant. But as days turned into a week, hope mingled with dread. NY's fragile health, her pacemaker, high blood pressure, cardiac issues, and need for daily medication made every passing hour critical. She couldn't walk more than 50 yards unaided. Yet, she had vanished without a trace. Tragically, the search ended not in reunion, but in heartbreak. On February 10th, 2026, authorities announced that NY's body had been found in a remote area outside Tucson, the victim of what investigators believed was a botched kidnapping gone wrong. The details were sparse, the grief overwhelming. Amid the outpouring of condolences, Savannah shared excerpts from the note on Today, her voice breaking as she read her mother's final words. It was a confession that peeled back the layers of a life marked by quiet resilience, unyielding faith, and unspoken burdens. Nancy had not intended for the note to be her farewell. It was written as a private reflection, perhaps sensing her time was short. But in death, it became her legacy, a testament to the hidden depths of a woman who had given everything to her family and community. Nancy Ellen Long was born on January 27, 1942 in Fort Wright, Kentucky, a small town just across the Ohio River from Cincinnati. The world was at war. World War II raged on. But in the modest home of her parents, William and Jane Long, life was a cocoon of simplicity and Midwestern values. Fort Wright, with its rolling hills and close-knit neighborhoods, was a place where community mattered, where church bells rang out on Sundays and families gathered for potlucks. Nancy was the first child, a cherubic girl with round cheeks, curly hair, and piercing blue eyes that would become a family trait passed down through generations. Her early years were shaped by the post-war optimism of the 1940s and 1950s, a time when America was rebuilding, and dreams seemed within reach for anyone willing to work hard. Growing up in northern Kentucky, NY's childhood was steeped in Catholic tradition. She attended St. Agnes Elementary School, where the nuns instilled in her a sense of discipline, faith, and service. Education was everything, she would later tell her children. It opened doors you didn't even know existed. In 1959, she graduated from Notre Academy, an all-girls Catholic high school in Park Hills, Kentucky, renowned for its rigorous academics and emphasis on moral character. Notre Dame wasn't just a school. It was a formative experience that honed NY's sharp mind and nurtured her budding interest in storytelling. Classmates remembered her as lively with a quick wit and a passion for writing. She was involved in school activities, perhaps the debate club or literary society, though details from those years are preserved more in family lore than public records. Kentucky's rolling bluegrass hills and vibrant culture left an indelible mark on Nancy. She loved the state's traditions, the thrill of horse races at Kelland, the warmth of Southern hospitality, and the unbreakable spirit of its people. But it was at the University of Kentucky where her life truly began to unfold. Enrolling in the early 1960s, Nancy majored in journalism, drawn to the power of words to inform, inspire, and connect. She joined the staff of the Kentucky Kernel, the student-run newspaper, rising to the position of society editor. It was a role that suited her perfectly, covering social events, weddings, and community happenings with a flair for detail and empathy. Nancy was an excellent journalist, recalled Jack Guthrie, no relation, her editor in 1962-63. She had a way of making the ordinary extraordinary, capturing the heart of a story. College was also where love found her. On a blind date arranged by friends, Nancy met Charles Errol Guthrie, a mining engineering student from Pineville, Kentucky, who had graduated from Georgia Tech. Their first outing, a University of Kentucky basketball game, a staple of Wildcats fans, captivated her. Charles, with his quiet confidence and adventurous spirit, captivated her. It was love at first sight, Nancy would later say, though she admitted to Savannah that she played it cool. They dated through her college years, sharing dreams of travel and family. Nancy graduated from UK, her diploma a symbol of independence in an era when many women were expected to marry young and forego careers. On December 28, 1963, Nancy and Charles were married in a simple yet elegant ceremony in Kentucky. The Cincinnati Enquirer announced the wedding, noting NY's UK education and Charles's engineering background. It was the beginning of a partnership built on mutual respect, shared faith, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. Charles's career as a mining engineer took them around the world, first to various U.S. sites, then abroad. In 1971, while stationed in Melbourne, Australia, Nancy gave birth to their youngest child, Savannah Clark Guthrie, on December 27th, just one day shy of their 8th wedding anniversary. "When you came, I knew my family was complete," Nancy told Savannah years later. The family already included older siblings Annie and Cameron, making them a tight-knit unit of 5. But Australia was temporary. In 1973, when Savannah was about 2, the Guthries relocated to Tucson, Arizona, drawn by Charles's work opportunities and the Southwest's promise of sunshine and open spaces. They settled into a burnt adobe home in the Catalina foothills, a neighborhood of stunning desert views and affluent calm. Tucson became their forever home, a place where Nancy blossomed as a mother and community pillar. She was a stay-at-home mom in those early years, dedicating herself to raising her children with love, structure, and faith. "God was the 6th member of our family," Savannah recalled in her book, Mostly What God Does. One of NY's earliest memories shared with her daughter was the family baptism, Nancy, Charles, and Cameron immersing themselves in faith, a moment that solidified their spiritual foundation. Life in Tucson was idyllic at first. Hikes in the Santa Catalina Mountains, barbecues with neighbors, and involvement in local churches. Nancy volunteered at her children's schools, organized community events, and became known for her warmth and organizational skills. But tragedy struck in 1988. Charles, only 49, suffered a sudden heart attack while on a business trip in Mexico. His death was a devastating blow, leaving Nancy a widow at 46 with 3 teenagers. Savannah, the youngest at 16, described it as the rug being pulled out from under us. Nancy, however, rose to the challenge with grit and grace. She set aside her own grief to be our rock, Savannah said on Today in 2017. To support the family, Nancy returned to work, landing a job in public relations at the University of Arizona. It was a strategic move. The position allowed her daughters Savannah and Annie to attend UA tuition-free. NY's career at UA spanned years where she handled communications, event planning, and media relations. Colleagues remembered her as professional, kind, and unflappable. Nancy was the glue that held things together. One former coworker said her journalism background served her well, crafting press releases and building relationships with local media. But her true calling was family and community. She became a beloved figure in Tucson, involved in charitable causes, church activities, and neighborhood initiatives. At St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church and later Episcopal gatherings, NY's faith shone through. She organized prayer groups, supported widows' ministries, and mentored young mothers. Nancy contributed so much to the Tucson community, said family friend Sally Shamrell. She was a positive force, always faithful. As her children grew, NY's pride in them was boundless. Cameron, the eldest, pursued his own path, while Annie built a life grounded in family values. But Savannah's rise to stardom was particularly poignant. Encouraged by Nancy to take journalism classes at UA, Savannah graduated in 1993 and embarked on a career in broadcast news, starting locally in Tucson at KVOA, then moving to Missouri and Washington, D.C. Savannah's trajectory led to NBC, where she became White House correspondent, Today legal analyst, and eventually co-anchor in 2012. Through it all, Nancy was her cheerleader. "My mom is my heart and my everything," Savannah wrote in a 2020 Instagram tribute for NY's 78th birthday. Nancy attended Savannah's milestones, her wedding to Mike Feldman in 2014, the births of grandchildren, Vale in 2014, and Charlie in 2016, traveling to New York despite her advancing age. NY's later years were marked by the quiet joys of grandmotherhood and the challenges of aging. She lived alone in her Catalina foothills home, surrounded by mementos of a full life. Photos of Charles, Savannah's Emmy Awards, grandchildren's artwork. Faith remained her anchor. She attended church regularly, finding solace in scripture and community. But health issues crept in. High blood pressure, cardiac problems, and a pacemaker installed in recent years limited her mobility. She needed daily medication, and simple tasks became arduous. Yet Nancy never complained. "She's met unthinkable challenges with grit without self-pity," Savannah said in a 2022 tribute for her mother's 80th birthday. It was in this twilight that Nancy penned her note to Savannah. Found tucked in a drawer amid the chaos of her disappearance, it was a confession of vulnerabilities she had hidden behind her stoic facade. "I've been lying my whole life, in a way," she wrote. "Not with words, but with smiles. People saw me as strong, the widow who held it all together after Charles died. But inside, I was terrified. How would I raise you three alone? How would I pay the bills? I worried every night about money, about whether I was enough." Nancy reflected on her early dreams of journalism set aside for family. "I don't regret that. Being your mother was my greatest joy, but I wish I'd been softer with myself, allowed more dreams to flourish." She confessed regrets, moments of impatience with her children, the grief she buried after Charles's death. "I wish I cried more. Let you see my pain. Instead, I soldiered on thinking endurance was strength." Health struggles weighed heavily. "These last years with the pacemaker and the pills, I've smiled through pain that scared me. I didn't want to burden you, my busy Savannah, with your big life in New York." Most poignantly, Nancy wrote of her faith and friendship with her daughter. "You understood the loneliness of loss better than anyone. Our bond, mother and daughter, but also friends, was my rebellion against hardship. You've proven kindness outlasts fame." Nancy thanked Savannah for the life she built, the grandchildren who brought light. If this was her last word, no, she tried to be fair, real, faithful. Being kind lasts longer than anything. "We outlive the noise, Savannah." Maybe that was the point. The note wasn't steeped in sorrow, but release, a final act of honesty. Nancy Guthrie's death shattered her family, but her note healed. Savannah, in eulogizing her on Today, said, "Mom taught us faith, resilience, love. Her confession reminds us even the strongest carry weights. She was our anchor. Now her words guide us." Vigils turned to memorials. Tucson mourned a community icon. NY's legacy endures not in headlines, but in the hearts she touched. From Kentucky roots to Arizona sunsets, she lived with integrity, leaving a note that confessed it all, ensuring her truth lived on.